Everybody, and welcome to the AI Teacher Lounge. Today is July 15th, 2026, and I want to talk about a very serious topic in the world of AI, something that every educator needs to know, which is student data privacy in the AI era. And so I want to take a look at this in much more detail because some of this stuff can get you in serious trouble if you don't know what's going on. So we are going to take a look specifically at ChatGPT and Claude when it comes to what we can do in our classrooms, in our trainings, et cetera, et cetera. So, why this matters before your next prompt. So, consumer chatbots are not school tools in the kind of strictest definition, right? So, the free ChatGPT and Claude accounts have no contract with your district. So, no agreement means that there's no student data protections built in. Now, I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying that you can't use your own ChatGPT or Claude accounts to get stuff done. They are very, very powerful. But like all tools, you really need to know how to use them to avoid, well, bad things happening. And that's kind of the big focus of this particular podcast. Your prompts can become company data. By default, many consumer AI accounts can use your chats to improve their models unless you change a setting. And in this podcast, I will show you, as well as tell you, for those of you listening to us online through SoundCloud or Spotify or iHeart or Amazon Music, we will talk you through how to find these settings, but that'll be a little bit later in the presentation. And remember, you are the privacy layer. The tools won't stop you from typing a student's name or other protected data into that chatbot. So you have to be the guardian of the secrets, the guardian of the confidentiality. And the part that nobody tells you, a prompt with a student's name in it is a disclosure. You can delete the chat, but you can't unsend it. It has already been sent. You cannot take it down from the clouds. So there are four terms that we need to really be comfortable with in understanding this conversation. Now, the previous podcast, we talked about the basics of AI. So we have that already established. Here are some four terms that we need to know to really kind of keep track of what we're talking about in this particular podcast. The first one is PII. That stands for personally identifiable information. This is anything that can be used to point to a specific person. This isn't, by the way, just for students. This is PII, personal identifiable information, which applies to all people, whether you're an adult or you're a student. The personal identifiable information, things like your name, your addresses, your social security numbers. In the world of education, their ID numbers. This is information that we need to protect. The next thing is retention. How long the company stores your conversation on its servers, even after you close the tab. This stuff is retained and it's still out there. The next one is training data. We talked about this in the previous podcast, but the AI and the models in the AI use training data. They use your chats, they use your input along with a whole bunch of other things to improve their model. It is learning from the inputs. So your prompt could very well become part of that lesson and that training data. And finally, we have opt out. This is a setting that tells the company, don't use my chats for training. And it exists in both Claude as well as ChatGPT, but most people aren't aware this thing even exists. And I'm going to show you and talk you through it before we conclude the podcast. So let's talk about FERPA. FERPA stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. If your school takes federal money, this applies to you. So FERPA protects education records. Now, I'm not just talking about elementary, middle, or high school. I consult with universities, I consult with colleges and the college students and the university students. This information is also protected. So FERPA protects educational records, so grades, IEPs, 504s, discipline files, health information that the school holds, and anything identifying a student from those records is protected information. Sharing without consent is a huge no no. Schools cannot disclose PII from educational records without parental or guardian or eligible student consent, with narrow exceptions. And remember, you act for the school. When you type student information anywhere, you're the school disclosing it. Your personal AI account is not a school system. Again, I don't want to scare you off from using AI. We're going to talk about how to use it responsibly when it comes to privacy. The teacher trap. Summarize this IEP for me now. I was in a classroom too, and I had 7 class periods in a day, and I got a ton of students in my classroom from 3 different high school campuses. I get it. You get just all this paperwork at the beginning of the year. It's a lot. With AI, you might be tempted to say, "All right, here it all is. Now summarize it for me." That is a big no-no. Don't do that. Okay? You paste that stuff into your personal chatbot. Yeah, it can summarize it, but guess what? You just did an unauthorized disclosure under FERPA. Even with good intentions, it doesn't matter. You still just broke the law. The next thing we need to be aware of is COPPA. Now, this isn't Copacabana for us Gen X's and older. This is COPPA. COPPA stands for Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and it protects children under 13 years old. It limits how online services collect personal information from children under 13. Consumer chatbots aren't built to comply with this, which is a big reason young students shouldn't be on them. So, bottom line here is students should never work inside your personal AI account, and young students shouldn't even have their own. Now, I can't believe I have to say that, right? Don't let students use your personal AI account. That is not a good idea. ChatGPT 13 plus, under 18 needs parental or guardian permission to use that model, while Claude is like, nope, you got to be 18 years and older, period. The golden rule: if you would not post it on the teacher lounge bulletin board, if you don't want to see this on a billboard, then don't type it into a chatbot. Remember, when something is put in the digital world, it is there forever and anyone can see it. Now, I know there's security and all this other stuff, but we hear about security breaches all the time. So remember, if you post something into the world out there, the internet, always assume it's going to wind up on a billboard somewhere. Now, that may not obviously be true, but it puts you in the right mind frame. Okay. So anything about a real student either gets de identified or stays out. There's no exceptions, not even for deadlines. So if your admin decide to put more stuff on your plate and you got a bajillion things to do, like we all do, don't let the deadlines or the stress of having to get stuff done make you break federal and state law. Remember, they will not stand behind you if you screw up. So just don't do that. So here's some things that you do not share. Now, I'll talk about what you can share in just a moment, but don't put these in a consumer chatbot. Student names, nicknames, or initials with context, grades or scores tied to a name. That is the key here. Grades and scores are fine if they're generic and you have no idea what the grades are at. So if you just copy grades, put them into a thing to figure out what the distribution was, as long as you can't tie that back to a student, I would even say a classroom or a class period, then you're okay. But don't allow it to be tied back to a student. Discipline records or behavior incidences are also a big no no. Family details, custody, income, immigration status, also a big no no. Student ID numbers, that's kind of I mean, that's just kind of a no kidding, right? Don't put student ID numbers in anything public. Birth dates, addresses, that's a no no. IEP 504, special education details, health, medicine, or medical, I should say, or counseling information, photos, videos, or student work with names on it. These are also things you don't put in there. In fact, most likely your school or your school district has some sort of media release thing or media release credentials because your school might say, "Hey, you need to post this to X or share this with Instagram to kind of generate publicity, positive publicity." Double check those. As somebody who ran a CTE program, who had to advertise, we made sure that we had permission to post images of students. That was just something we had to do. So again, just be aware of that. The things you can go and share, the things that go for it, fair game. Lesson plans. Lesson plans, I'm telling you what, we're going to have a podcast just on lesson plans and AI, Gen AI, Claude, and ChatGPT make developing lesson plans, unit outlines, and pacing guides so ridiculously easy. Standards, objectives, curriculum questions, also very powerful in your Gen AI. De-identify writing samples. You scrub, make sure they can't trace that writing sample back to, little Sarah or little Tommy or whoever. You can make up student data for demos and practice. ChatGPT and Claude are great at creating dummy data. Rubrics and assignment directions. No names. This is also good things you can put in the AI. Generic scenarios. For example, instead of saying Timmy struggles with fractions, put in there, hey, a seventh grader struggles with fractions. What would be a great way to instruct them? So you're scrubbing the identification. Now, you might say, well, we shouldn't have seventh grade in there either. Fair point. But with Gen AI, you can give it the audience. You can say, hey, this is for a seventh grader. How would we explain it? I would say if you want to be extra, extra, extra cautious, you might want to say a middle schooler has a problem with fractions. How would we explain this? That would be a safer way to present it if you truly are very concerned about that. So, no harm on that one. Your own drafts, emails, newsletters, syllabi, very good to put into the AI for help. Questions about teaching strategies and tech, also fantastic things to put into your AI. So, de identifying in four moves. Number one, strip. Remove the names, initials, ID numbers, school names, all that stuff. Two, generalize. Eighth grader, not a birth date, reads below grade level, not the diagnosis. So, again, you want to generalize it so nobody can trace it back to the classroom or the student. Number three, swap. Change details that don't matter. Subject, gender, small facts. I kind of had to laugh about this because what would happen if you're swapping out the details from a child you know and you accidentally identify somebody you don't know? Just, but I guess you're not on the hook because they're not your kid and it's not your classroom and you're not sharing information. I mean, there's somebody named Sarah out there who's got a birthday on January 12th and is in eighth grade. Okay. But make sure you swap out the details for your kids. You're not trying to give away your PII. Number four, recheck. Could a colleague guess who it is? In a small class, combos identify kids. So if you're unsure, have somebody recheck. Of course, if you're really, really unsure, then don't put it into a chat bot. So here's an example. Marcus J., seventh grader at Lincoln Middle School, has an IEP for reading and got a 58 on the last test. Obviously, full of PII. We need to do something with this. So we change it instead to a middle schooler reading below grade level scored under 60. Suggest three ways to reteach. So we've stripped out the child's name. We have stripped out the grade this child is in. We stripped out the school they're in. And we also got rid of the exact score that they got on the test. So that would be an outstanding way to de identify whom you're talking about. All right, so let's talk about locking down ChatGPT. I am going to walk you through real fast how we can identify or how we can, I should say, change our settings. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the screen. If you're not, I will walk you through on the microphone how we get there. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at Claude. Claude, I am going down to the bottom left-hand side where my user information is. I'm clicking on my S because my first name is Scott. I'm going to settings. Settings opens up a brand new window. And I'm going to look, oh, let's say we'll look in privacy first. Okay. Okay, there's the privacy. All right. Privacy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not seeing anything really that screams at me to hide my information. However, under privacy in the settings window, there is this little innocuous, little harmless, innocent thing that says, help improve our AI models. What this is doing is it is allowing Claude to use the information you provide it to improve the models. We want to turn this off. It is on by default. We want to make sure this is turned off. I'm now going to hop over to ChatGPT, and it's very, very similar. I'm going to go down to my name that's on the lower left-hand side of my browser window. I'm going to click on my icon. I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to go to, let's see, data control. So it's a little bit different, put it in a different spot. I'm in data control. And at the very top under data control is the improve the model for everyone. Again, it sounds harmless, but I'm going to make sure that is turned off. This all, again, helps keep your information private. So it is not necessarily shared. I'm also going to share with you another thing you can do. In ChatGPT, and I'm looking at the window right now under chat, on the top right hand side, there's like a little dialogue thing. Like if you've ever seen a comic book or cartoon, like a little speech bubble. Well, I'm going to click on the speech bubble, and it what it does is it turns on temporary chat. So I have just clicked temporary chat. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the screen. For those of you who are listening, if you again go to the dialogue window up the top part right there, you can click on temporary chat. And this is what it says. This chat won't appear in history or be used to train our models. For safety purposes, we keep a copy of this chat for up to 30 days. That is important. Okay. They are keeping a copy of your chat. They're telling you right there. This might be their version of incognito, but they're holding on to that chat for up to 30 days. So I would not use that and try to avoid doing what we just talked about keeping PII secret. Okay. This is just one more tool, one more way you can help protect information. So, your 5-minute privacy routine. Flip both training toggles off. I talked about that. I showed it how to do that. De-identify your default. Instead of saying fourth grader, a fourth grader in my class, you can say elementary student, what have you. Keep students off your account. Again, this is kind of under the heading of no kidding. Don't do that. Okay. Don't let your students use your account. That's just, I mean, would you let them use your Gmail? I mean, no, of course not. Use temporary chat when unsure. So I just showed you at least on ChatGPT how to turn on its version of incognito mode and check your district policies. If you are fortunate, if you are working in a school district that is enlightened, that has a clue, they should have an AI advisory board. They should be made of experts in AI and education, helping craft guidelines for the teachers to follow. The problem is if they don't do this, every teacher's on their own to make policies. And unless you are a teacher who's keeping up with information, this could lead to some trouble, which, by the way, is why we have the AI Teacher Lounge. So if you care about your fellow teachers, then by all means, be sure to share with them our information. We have a newsletter. Go to the AIteacherlounge.com and you can sign up for our newsletter. It's free, it's a weekly newsletter. Plus, of course, we have these podcasts that can help you stay on track with what's going on in the world of AI and education. So, when you need more than settings, school editions do, in fact, exist. So, some schools will have contracts with OpenAI or what have you for educational purposes. ChatGPT, EDU, and Claude for Education run under real contracts, no training on your data, admin controls, student access done properly. There are more laws out there. This is by no means complete legal advice here. Actually, this is not legal advice. This is just best practices because the chances are your state that you're listening to this in has its own set of laws regarding privacy. And ask before classroom use. Any AI in front of students should go through your district's vetting, the same as any other ed tech tool. All right. That is going to conclude this very important podcast. Please be sure to share it with other teachers out there who may need to know this. Again, we talked about the basics of keeping data safe in your AI. We have, of course, the AIteacherlounge.com where you can find more information as well as subscribe to our newsletter. We have podcasts. This podcast is now not just on YouTube. We also have it in audio only through SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Radio. Not bad for being, what, 3 episodes in. So that is it from me. I want to thank you all for joining me and thank you all for sharing this information with your fellow educators. Goodbye for now.